Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the President saying that there's a lot of work being done for the Job Summit, so we will need to release him quite quickly. I will take 2 rounds of questions, 3 questions per round. If you could introduce yourself and ask your question, keep it crisp, please. Sir, I see you, you're number 1, number 2 on the side here, and then Rajeni, you'll be the last one in this round. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Peter du Toit from News 24. You say a government has limited fiscal space. We know that from the last couple of budgets and mini budgets that we've seen. You say that spending will be reprioritized. Where will that spending be reprioritized from? In other words, which programs will money be taken away from to spend on different programs? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I have a microphone on this side? Terence, behind you.
Good morning, Mr. President. Arabile Kumete from SABC. My question then is, you haven't put a specific timeline with regards to these, and you haven't necessarily put anybody accountable in this regard. Could you please give further details with regards to that as well? Thank you.
Thank you very much. A microphone in front here.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'm Ranjini Mansami from TISO Black Star. Mr. President, just to follow up on Arabile's question, you also have no determined measurables as to how we gauge whether the package is working or not. So at what point do we measure that, and what would you use as those measures? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, ministers?
Well, those are easy questions. So easy that I'm going to ask the ministers to answer them. Minister Nene will answer the one on the reprioritization. Where is the money coming from? It's absolutely right. We're having to reprioritize and reposition money from various departments, and he will deal with that. The timeline is, this is going to be implemented as we walk out of this room. For instance, on infrastructure, we're now going to move ahead to set up the South Africa Infrastructure Fund. We're going to bring in quite a number of people from the private sector, from the labor, from government, and we are going to make sure that we set this one up. And fortunately, people in the private sector want to see this happening quickly because they have loads of money that they would like to deploy. And when we say we have shovel-ready projects, they are most interested in those projects, so that is going to happen quickly. How are we going to measure progress? That's a very good question. We will obviously want to measure progress through the growth that is going to begin to be generated, hopefully, and also the number of jobs. And we will be evaluating ourselves as well. And indeed, there will be a number of other agencies that will also evaluate us. But I want to ask Minister Nene to come and answer the first one, and other colleagues can also chip in.
Mr. President, allowed to do it from here. Yeah, please, go stand up. I've been instructed. The reprioritization is indeed what we are working on as we speak. We've been going through a very intense process, working with the Department of Performance Monitoring and Evaluation. Moving funds would be mainly from, be it underperforming, a number of trade-offs are going to be taken into account. Underperforming programs that actually, trade-offs have to do with when you have new priorities and there's agency of delivering on the new priorities. It means that some of what otherwise might have been budgeted for and could no longer be priorities. But I wouldn't risk releasing what the President said we would have to release in the medium-term budget policy statement, because that is the process that will capture the actual movement of funds as to from which programs to which programs. But it is at an advanced stage where we now have identified, as you can see, that there are numbers. When we talk about those numbers, it is because we've already identified them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. I'll take the next round. Sir, you are number 1. You are number 2. And the final question will go to you, sir, in the maroon.
Hi, Mr. President. It's Ramaphosa, a journalist from MoneyWeb. I believe your infrastructure investment plan is separate to your investment drive. You've received funding from China and other institutions as well. Can you just talk about the lenders for this infrastructure plan and stimulus package as well? What kind of lenders are you looking at here? Are you also looking at international, lenders like the IMF? What are you looking at exactly here?
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. President. It's Jean-Jacques Cornish from Eyewitness News and Radio France. The issue of visas and the issue of tourism and travel to this country, it's interesting that you've brought it up in this particularly auspicious surroundings. Is it true that we have been losing $500 million a year from people finding it too difficult to visit this country? And are you able to flesh out at all when you say visa restrictions or visa limitations on children and so on? Any more detail? Because we've been talking about it, but we don't really have the flesh and bones on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lesita Malope from City Press. My question is about the timing of the plan. Wouldn't this make more sense if you were announcing it after the two summits? Or are you going to present this plan to the two summits and then take inputs, change as you go along?
Thank you very much. Mr. President, ministers.
On the lenders, yes, this infrastructure fund is separate from the investment drive. However, it is possible that those that we're seeking to invest in our economy may well want to put money or invest in this type of fund. As I was saying, this fund is going to be a blended finance type of fund. It will have equity, quasi-equity. It will also have debt. It will also be the type where we can structure bonds into it. So is it IMF? No, we're not looking at the IMF. The New Development Bank has a facility that can be made available to us, and we are exploring that as well, and want to do it in a way where it does not require sovereign guarantee, because our lending capacity is a little bit constrained. So it will be a fund that will, as I say, be a blended one, and we will want to attract quite a bit of money into it. And pension funds are long-term investors, and they have shown keen interest as well, because they often put money in shopping malls, and we want them to participate with us in building the core infrastructure assets of the nation, so that out of that we are then able to generate economic growth. And infrastructure, as many of us will know, is a key driver when it comes to economic growth. And being able to mobilize funding, and funding will come from all quarters, including from government, will be able to channel the funding that we have. And part of it will also be coming from government to capitalize the fund and get it off the ground. And this is where we will have a number of instruments. We'll want to use lots of instruments to be able to attract participants. A number of countries have done it recently. India did it recently, and they've done it to good effect. They've been able to raise quite a bit of money, even from the offshore field. So we feel very confident about this. But the good thing with this is that alongside this fund, there's going to be an execution and implementation unit that is going to make sure that we implement projects on time, on budget, and never have overruns that are unnecessary. So we're looking forward to this fund being a good one. On the tourism side, yes, we've been receiving a lot of concerns and complaints from many players. As I've personally been traveling around the world, I've been hearing those who would want to come to our country complaining about our visa architecture and saying, we would like to come. Just for starters, during the state visit that President Xi Jinping paid here, he said there are many people from China who want to travel the world. They've suddenly exploded into the middle class, and they want to travel, and Africa is one of those places where they want to come because they find it beautiful, exciting, and one of the better places to go to. And he said they are constrained in coming to South Africa because our visa regime has been a bit prohibitive. So yes, we have lost quite a lot of money. I'm not able to quantify it in the hundreds of millions of dollars, but we have lost quite a bit, and we think we can regain that if we change, as we are now doing, our visa architecture. Now, there has been in our visa requirements, of those who travel with children, and they must have their birth certificates and all that. Now, all that is being finalized. In fact, we are negotiating and finalizing, in fact, the arrangements with various countries. We've got a string of countries that Cabinet approved that we should finalize these agreements with. And so soon, in fact, just in weeks, we will be able to finalize many of those as to be able to open the doors for various people from various countries to come to South Africa. As regards timing, what is the best time? What is the best time? Any time is a good time in my view. We've got this stimulus package that we are now announcing. We're going to have a job summit. And quite a lot of the discussion in the job summit is beginning to drill down into the various sectors where jobs can be created. Now, it is better to go into that job summit with government armed, if you like, and indeed other role players armed with interventions that are ready to be implemented, than to go to a job summit and go and theorize and talk about possibilities, probabilities, and all that. We want to go to a job summit and say these are the types of jobs that can be created in this industry and that industry. You heard we are talking about industries or sectors that are in distress, the textile and clothing industry being one of them, and a number of others. Agricultural sector, currently going through challenges. We want to empower those who are playing in that sector. We want to inject vitality. So as we go to the job summit, we will have something meaningful on the table. And similarly, when we go to the investment conference, what investors, and with the investment conference, we are banking more and more on local investors, South African investors investing in their own economy. We want to go there having provided a good measure of certainty on a number of policy concerns that they have raised, i.e. the mining charter, i.e. the telecoms spectrum issue, and a whole number of others. We want to go to that conference saying, investors and potential investors, we have cleared the decks on the policy side. South Africa is open for business and investment. Let us now start talking about how you will be able to invest to help us to grow our economy and to create jobs. So, as they say, any time is tea time. Thank you very much.